My name's Khadijah Reed,
Hello, I'm Anthony Robinson.
and we read the essay by Elaine Locke, The New Negro. So I'm just going to start off with the New Negro, the definition of the New Negro. Through his writing was a new generation of post-Reconstruction blacks who, despite their circumstances, had taken pride in their demand for equal political and economic rights and strived to establish an independent voice in African American arts and literature. I felt as if the New Negro focused on the more progressive and political issues instead of the social ones, like the ones like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. Focused on. They became more involved in political and economic issues.
I honestly think that the term New Negro comes from a newer generation who is coming up and their families dealing with hardships. As times move on, they see what's going on with their people and not just their family, and they voice their opinion in which they want to be treated as equal as the European Americans.
In the essay, he also talked about Harlem and how it was the home base for the whole New Negro movement, and the New Negro movement was just to change the idea of change the world's idea of the Black American and to revolutionize it from the image of a slave into one of that's liberated and in better political standing. A lot of this occurred through like quote unquote media, like pamphlets and leaflets and things like that. And that media definitely back then contributed to the transformation of the image of a Black American.
Oh yeah. Also elaborating on the New Negro, I think it also refers to the term in which the new generation, post-Reconstructed blacks, who despite the violent times their parents and grandparents have indulged, they have once stood up and taken pride in the community and not just for their family, but they see that what's going on. It kind of relates back to the Black Lives Matter movement, in which people are not just standing up for those who are getting killed, but those who are being stopped by the police or being handcuffed for no reason or being tased or some of that sort.
So the New Negro didn't sit quietly and submit to the racist racial practices. He or she became outspoken and requested the respect and dignity of his or her race, the Black African American race. The old Negro, like Locke has said in the writing, was you could still hear the chains, the clicking of the chains, and everything that the old Negro said. So they just had that old submissive mentality that a lot of African Americans did have back then. I learned it took a lot of work for Black Americans to get where we are today, and I think a lot of the credit goes to social civil rights leaders like MLK and Rosa Parks, but there's a lot of credit that should be given to literates such as W. Du Bois, Elaine Locke, and others like that who contributed to the renaissance of Black Americans. I think that a lot of credit should be given to them because they did play a huge part.
Something that I took from this passage was that Black literature started with four main people, it being Charles Chesnutt, Pauline Hopkins, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and W.E.B. Du Bois, in which the term Renaissance came from, which is less stressful than the common term New Negro Renaissance, explosion of the vast writing in poetry, fiction, painting, sculpture, and music, as well as increases in historical and social writing about Black Americans. In Harlem, New York, in the 20s was a unique time in cultural history.
The New Negro today, in a sense, to me, is just someone who doesn't submit to the unfair treatment by whites and makes strides to change the perception of Black Americans. The New Negro today recognizes injustice but does stuff to get involved in the community, in the issues, like gets involved in government issues like that instead of just protesting. Protesting and rallying can only get you so far.